What is up, Nuggets? It's your boy, Killer Pizza, here with a brand new video for you rascals and rapscallions out there. It is day 12 of 12 of our Friday the 13th marathon, where I review a Friday the 13th film every day leading to the 13th, where I give a complete franchise ranking. And I'll tell you what, guys, I applaud anybody on YouTube who does daily videos. To put these 12 out was a bit of work. You know, I had a lot of fun revisiting the series, but with my work schedule and everything, to find the time to watch them, set up, sit down, and talk about them, it was very time consuming. So as much fun as I had with this franchise, I'm excited to get it over with and get my rankings out for you guys tomorrow. So if you haven't watched any of my previous reviews, make sure to go check those out. Like, comment, subscribe, share all that fun stuff if you'd like. And be sure to come back tomorrow to check out the complete franchise ranking. Anyways, we're going to talk about the reboot. This is 2009's Friday the 13th. Now, this is a pretty fun movie. It's kind of crazy to think about that this was almost 15 years since we've had Jason on screen. You know, I know they were going to make that TV series at one point, but I know with the Writers Guild strike, I don't know how soon it is we're going to get that. But anyways, we start off the movie giving a little bit of a recap, kind of like a reenactment of what happened at the end of part one with Mrs. Voorhees getting her head chopped off with a machete. But in this version, kid Jason sees it happen, picks up the machete in her locket, and takes off. And then we get the opening credits, and we meet what we think is our first set of kids in this. We meet our cast. They're hiking through the woods, and they're trying to find this field of marijuana in the woods to sell and get rich quick. Some green to make some green. So this was a lot of fun, and honestly, this kind of catches you by surprise if this is your first time watch. I love this opening with Jason coming in and attacking all these kids. It gives them like maybe 10, almost 15 minutes of meeting these characters to the point you think this is going to be your cast of characters, which I would have way rather had this be the characters than what we get. But anyways, we get Sackhead Jason here. We got one guy that goes off to look for the marijuana. This guy and his girl are hooking up in the tent while the other couple go to explore Camp Crystal Lake, where they find where Jason is sleeping, discover Mrs. Voorhees' severed head and whatnot in the wall. And Jason shows up, and I love seeing the return of Sackhead Jason. A lot of people don't remember that, you know, 2, 3, and 4, Jason was running like full speed. He wasn't this ominous force. And this Jason is booking it, and it's pretty badass with the cloth and sack around his face. Kills the guy looking for the weed, and the other two kind of uneventfully, nothing too special. He captures one of the girls. This will lead later on in the movie. But some of the coolest kills here, he takes the one girl and puts her in the pillow sack, or the sleeping bag, and hangs her upside down above the fire, and they're showing shots of her inside. That's some brutal shit right there. And then ends up catching her boyfriend in a bear trap, which that's something we're going to see a lot in this movie. I'll tell you what, I don't have a problem with Jason setting up traps and stuff around Camp Crystal Lake. I think that's pretty cool. This is a bit of a more intelligent Jason, which I'm not mad about. This is kind of refreshing to show like some throwback to the original character, the original Jason, but kind of switching it up a little bit. And this scene where he ends up coming after the final girl and guy, and the way he swings the machete at him full speed, it's some terrifying shit. And then we lead into the present, where we meet our cast of crew, our main characters, and these are some of the worst characters in any Friday the 13th movie. And I'm going to say right now, you know, I've heard a lot of people criticize, you know, I think I mentioned this in a previous review of this franchise, where I've heard people say, like, why do the characters have to be good? You know, if they suck, you just want them to die. And it's like, I've made the point that, like, if a character is good, you can invest in them and you care more for if they survive or not. And I understand if the characters are unlikable to want to see them get killed, but if the majority of the movie is me having to sit through watching these characters interact and they're all complete douchebags and forgettable characters, it makes the watch miserable. And a lot of these characters did this for me. Where this guy Trent, who's like the main boyfriend, this guy is one of the biggest douchebags in horror movie history. I can't stand this guy. And it's not like, oh, I hate him, I want to see him get killed, which you do. It's more like what they say, like X-Pac heat in wrestling terms. Like, you just want him to go away. You know. So, and I forget his girlfriend's name in here. It's forgettable anyway. She's one of the worst final girls, but she's pretty stupid too, man. they run into this guy who's the brother of one of the girls that was in the opening credits, which she turns out she got kidnapped and she's being held captive by Jason, because I guess in the locket she kind of resembles his mom, which I really don't like that, honestly. Like, it's cool for him to set up these traps, in my opinion. I think that's kind of a fun little layer to it, but the fact that Jason is like capturing people, whether it looks like his mom or not, that's not something we ever seen. And once again, you know, they tried something new. it's whatever. They didn't tarnish the legacy or anything by doing that, but that just seems so uncharacteristic for Jason to do, especially like in part 3, we were hearing, stories they pretty much raped Chris Higgins, so like, what is the deal with this? I don't know. I do appreciate this movie tried to take more of a serious tone and whatnot, but yeah, anyways, when they stop at like this gas station, there's this guy, the older brother, like I said, who's the older brother to this girl who's held captive, and he's looking for her, handing out like missing papers and everything. And I do like the element of like hunting for, looking for somebody, hunting for Jason, trying to find the person you lost, just like I believe Rob in part 4. And this guy Trent's a complete dick to him and everything, tells him to get lost, go kick rocks, and they kind of have a back and forth just to reestablish more that Trent's a dick. They go to this beautiful, beautiful cabin. It would be great to stay in a place like this. And Trent's a little rich kid bitching the whole time, don't ruin my dad's chair, my dad's carpet, and everything. And this is where the movie gets kind of weird. It's like, granted, this guy treats his girlfriend like shit. That doesn't change the girl sticking with the boyfriend like in any of these movies when that happens. But like this guy that's handing out the flyers is going door to door in the town trying to hand out flyers. He hands a flyer at that door, and the girl like invites him inside. What? You go on a vacation with your boyfriend and you invite another guy in that you just, isn't that kind of weird? And then question when your boyfriend gets pissed that you just invite like some 6'4" good looking guy into the trailer, not into the trailer, into the cabin. And they end up like taking off into the woods, like going for a hike, like an 8-hour hike or something, going through Camp Crystal Lake, investigating and shit. It's like, what's going on here? It's like, I like that they try to portray these two as good characters. Even the girl, it's like, even if your boyfriend treats you like shit and you're being portrayed as like a good character in this movie, you're not really a good person just by taking off with like this other guy that you just met in the woods. If you don't like your boyfriend, don't go on the fucking trip with him. You know what I mean? So we go into like some deals like where they're doing some cat and mouse shit, hiding from Jason, and we see him kind of doing some kills and whatnot, doing what Jason does best. And then we just see these characters the entire time interacting with each other at the house. And I will say, like, that's like a charm that, like, in part 2 that I love so much. Like, the characters are believable. They seem like real people that are having fun. I'll say, I'm about the age of these people, like, when this movie came out. You know what I mean? I was, and I'll just say, like, unless this is how your crowd used to roll back in the day, this is not how regular people act. Like, these teenagers, they act fucking weird. Like, even when they're playing beer pong, like, oh, you lose, you have to drink beer out of my shoe I'm wearing. Who the fuck ever did that? Bunch of weirdos, man. And, oh, you lost 10 games in a row. They sat there and played 10 games, went 0-10 in beer pong. A dude goes and hooks up with, Trent goes and hooks up with this other girl in the cabin. And one of the most vulgar sex scenes since part 5 or Jason Goes to Hell. And he's saying all these lines, like, you have wonderful tits and stuff. It's like, once again, who talks like that? This is like the weirdest shit. And I mean, there's some fun kills in here. Jason is very violent in the way he attacks and how vicious he is. Like, there's a scene where he kills this guy in like the garage of the cabin, the storage area. And he takes like the screwdriver and sticks it through his throat. And how long that kill goes, that was pretty damn cool. Like, it was brutal, the tension and everything. And when he eventually, I mean, he goes through everybody, kills everybody in this damn house. And this is when they find out killing's going on. This is where the acting is the absolute worst. Like, the one girl that hooked up with Trent, she's like down by like the island, like, when will this stop? When will this stop? Just not very good, not very believable. And I will say a good thing with Trent, because there's an ongoing thing in a lot of these movies where the assholes in a film don't really get what's coming to them, where this guy actually gets a kill worth it. He goes to try to flag down a truck, and Jason shows up behind him, sticks his machete through his back, but like he grabs the machete, the bottom of it, from the front hand while it's through him, and like lifts him up, and you can really feel it. Then he just shoves him through like this spike that's hanging off the back of this truck. So that's some pretty brutal shit right there. And earlier there's a scene where one of the places the dude was trying to hand out flyers was like this little shop, this little barn shop. And I do like the continuity of, like, it shows in the beginning where it left off at part 1 with Mrs. Voorhees getting her head chopped off, with Jason gets the machete. And then it shows Sackhead Jason. And then when Jason kills this guy earlier in this little barn, he sees the mask on the ground and takes the mask. So we kind of have the continuity from where you go from part 1 to part 3. So I don't mind little things like that. I will say with this movie, though they tried new things, they did hold a lot to the continuity of at least the originals, which I'm a fan of that, obviously. What I don't like is keeping the sister captive down there. And this just reminds me of, like, they're in this underground tunnel. It's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. It's like, why the fuck is Jason in this underground lair? I don't get it, man. I don't really care for that, but one little shock we had is when they find the sister and they take off running, what you thought would be the final girl ends up getting killed. She takes a machete, which isn't a bad thing because the sister is more likable than her, obviously. So it's brother and sister taking off running from Jason. They get in a big fight scene, the brother and Jason, and kind of a throwback to Jenny in part two because she looks like Mrs. Voorhees. She kind of says, Jason, stop, shows him the locket and kind of like gets enough time to distract them and whatnot, where they end up like hooking a chain to his neck and he gets his head pulled into like this grinder that they showed earlier in the movie. So that was some pretty brutal shit. This isn't zombie Jason, this movie. This is just a regular guy. You know, the design they did on the head too was cool. You know, it kind of was a throwback to how he looked in, 1 and 4. So, I can dig that. And I like what they were trying to do. I really do. Just honestly, I don't know how high this will rank for me. Not one of my favorites. I feel I've been saying that a lot. I'm sorry, guys, if I'm coming off so negative in these reviews. I really don't mean to. Like, you can sit down and watch any one of these movies, and they're enjoyable, besides Jason Goes to Hell, which is a complete sack of shit. But, I'm just trying to point out the stuff I didn't like in a lot of these films. These two end up making it home stretch. They make it out clean. And what I don't understand is they take Jason's body with his mask and the locket, and they throw him in the lake. So if there's a complete fucking massacre and you're the only survivors, you don't think any authorities are going to get involved, I would keep that body. Call the police right away and say, this is the guy that did it. Because, what are they going to go in the middle of the lake? You're probably going to go to prison for this shit, you guys. But we get this final scene of Jason bursting through the dock, and pulling the girl underwater, which might have just been a fantasy. I don't mind the callback from the originals. And I must say, I do appreciate somebody getting thrown through the windshield of the car, and because I believe every single movie in this franchise had somebody getting thrown through a glass window or Jason bursting through a window, maybe besides Jason X off the top of my head. So I appreciate that. That was a lot of fun. So honestly, I don't really have many issues with this movie besides the way Jason keeps a prisoner, his little underground bunker and whatnot. Maybe he's a little too smart for his own good sometimes, in my opinion. Maybe some of the callbacks were a little much, and the characters were miserable, man. Like I said, this is why I love certain franchise, certain movies in this franchise so much, because the characters do matter to me. We got to sit through this the whole time. Like, what a lot of people don't realize too with horror, like a lot of horror movies, the violence don't really start till the third act, maybe halfway through the second. So like, you got to really sit through all these scenes with these actors. Like, look at the movie Clerks, for example. I know it's not horror. All they do is talk the whole movie. Or even like Dazed and Confused, a comedy movie I talked about in my cult classics reviews. Those are movies where nothing really happens, but you like the characters and you're invested in them. It's fun to watch and be a part of the ride. Where this, it makes it almost unwatchable. But not the worst, definitely not close to the best, but it's just okay here. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see where my rankings are, because some things have kind of switched around since my previous rankings. Some have switched since the reviews I've done on this channel, just through time and kind of letting it linger. But with that being said, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate anybody that's been watching these reviews, just watching some guy ramble on about Friday the 13th for 2 weeks. This was a lot of fun to do this series. Probably one of the more ambitious things I've done on this channel. Like I said, I've always missed Friday the 13th reviews every Friday the 13th. And it was a lot of work to do a review every single day of the week, and then the franchise ranking. So, yeah, be sure to go check out the previous reviews if you haven't watched them yet, and make sure you come check out the franchise ranking tomorrow. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel and you like the content, I'd appreciate you give it a like, subscribe. 800 is the next goal. I would really appreciate it. Overall, hopefully everybody's having a good one. Thanks for watching. Blood, Guts, Gore. See you guys tomorrow. Check you guys next time.